Hello, I'm Kirsten Thanis. I'm a KMP developer. Tech support's coming out Tuesday to close that bad boy up and be out of my hair eventually. Today I'm going to be reacting to how new technology creates new businesses from Y Combinator. Now I have mixed opinions about Y Combinator for various reasons. I think they've shilled a lot of stuff. They promote a lot of stuff. I think they got super rich in a zero interest rate environment and kind of lost the script a little bit. Kind of addicted to the low hanging fruit of new technological advancements. But in this rare episode, they kind of let it slip a little bit that you may not need their services as quickly as you would think that they would. I'm really surprised at their candor here. Maybe they've taken a turn for the better. I don't know. They've been admitted to like exaggerating things a little bit in the past to make up for the demand and how much people wanted to invest with them. It's like, well, we can only get the money to so many places, and there's only so many ideas out here that are showing up to do it. So some of them may not be the best, may not be quite up to snuff, so to speak, so to say. But we haven't heard any super scandals like them grifting off some of the fake, maybe some promoting some fake companies for this. No, it would be awful suspicious if they were. Okay, let's hear him talk about this MicroMonopoly. I'm calling it a MicroMonopoly. Revolution that's kind of happening right now because the tooling has gotten so much better for building these things. Like all the technology that we're currently using on all the current tech that's been offered is just a clusterfuck of all kinds of crazy mishmash of stuff. And what I'm seeing is the tooling, specifically KMP, Kotlin multi-platform, and Kotlin in general, the Kotlin ecosystem, because it's coming from JetBrains, who makes the IDE, who makes the language, who's creating these cross-platform tools to have all these deployment targets designed from the ground up to do this. It's making it a lot easier to have a small team or just one person, really. It could be one person if they see the business opportunity, a clear one. Maybe two people. Really, that's the optimal. Is someone that sees this market inefficiency that could be exploited, and someone who sees the new tooling that's available and has enough experience in the business to know what needs to be done and what can be skipped.
Like the only way to find these opportunities, learn about them, is to find weirdos on the internet. They're also into this thing,
Yes.
And they're figuring it out too,
Yes.
and kind of compare notes.
Yes.
And this is how new industries are created.
Literally. By weirdos on the internet. Like literally.
Literally.
This is Dalton plus Michael, and today we're going to talk about why AI is going to create more successful founders in the world. It's interesting, as we've gotten older, it's sad, we kind of see a new set of tools come into the market.
I like getting older.
In the number of founders who can now create value. And we've seen this before, right? Like, what was the first time you saw this?
I certainly noticed when the internet was new, people that knew how to build websites were suddenly able to make lots of money from the skill. And it was like really basic stuff. High school kids were making tons of money.
Yep.
I remember people that could just figure out how to sell stuff on eBay, where you would go buy something cheap, but then list it on eBay and arbitrage.
Yep.
Basically, you would see people that kind of understood the new tooling that came out and would like do a hustle and make ungodly amounts of money.
Yep.
Right, because it was low-hanging fruit. That was the first time this has been available. All these things have been now majorly exploited to the nth degree, and that's no longer the opportunity. But the cycle of having new tech, new technologies, new techniques, new ways of doing new software. Really, it's not really too tech. I don't know, that word is kind of a mishmash. New software. There's new software available that's now making building these things a lot easier. And so in the beginning, it was only the super nerds who are already kind of into all this stuff already. It's sort of similar to right now. But in the beginning, it was just nerds, like online nerd, like just people like computer stuff. Oh, there's a market for this. Oh, people will pay for this. Oh, there's an arbitrage here. Like, just need to go in and do it. And there's nobody even thinking about doing it. Okay.
And it was just because they understood the new tools.
And already wasn't even a hustle. Like, it was a good business. Yeah. Like it was, they saw that tools enabled new businesses. We saw this, tail end of the open source world where like we could build all of Justin TV with free software.
Yep.
And then we were there in the beginning of cloud compute where we didn't have to rack servers anymore. Any kid could sign up for an Amazon account.
Right, but that's when these machines were super expensive, getting the T1 lines, everything was super slow. You couldn't do it from home. But now it's like, you can put a really fast internet cable and serve hundreds of thousands of people just from your home office. I mean, this is a different. So they're talking about 10 years ago, and yeah, you had to. There wasn't this. The infrastructure wasn't there, but now the infrastructure is there. I would say even cloud computing, maybe not even kind of a bit passe for small projects like I'm talking about. I mean, if you want to completely avoid charges and never have a problem with overages, like, well, on-prem is the way to go.
Put a couple bucks down and get access.
And I mean, these devices are so cheap now. They're so fast. It's like the people got to get stuck in the mode that cloud computing was the only way to go. It's like, no, there's other ways of doing it.
We didn't have to rack servers anymore. Any kid could sign up for an Amazon account, put a couple bucks down.
But racking servers, you had to have a couple people dedicated to that, and it was really hard. But it's not that hard anymore.
And get access to a server. And so what's interesting is that we feel pretty good about saying this, we might be on the cusp of the next one of these. And that means there are maybe a whole bunch of new opportunities for successful businesses to be created.
Right.
Yeah.
Starting now.
Yeah. I mean, here's another metaphor. When the iPhone came out, who would have thought that Flappy Bird would have been created? And I think I read that guy made like 20 million.
Well, I mean, okay, so any new platform that gets as much press and hype and hit the little bit of a sweet spot, but like just fast enough internet to kind of wireless internet connectivity to kind of get the things working, because before that, it just was not even a thing. And then having the graphical displays as opposed to this text block stuff that they had before that was awful. So yeah, so it was the first time we kind of saw, and then the App Store came in. It was the first time we saw how all this stuff, because doing the apps before, you had to like download them separately and do some kind of program that brought it over the device. It was a big mess. It was a big mess, but it was just kind of how hobbyists did it. We weren't caring about. We were just glad we were able to do it. Like, we're not ease of use for the consumer. Well, that was 15 steps down the line. And so Apple saw this, which because they were hobbyists from the beginning, and they see these waves ahead of time. At least they did at the time. I don't know if they do it now, but like, they saw that this thing. People saw there was a new way of delivering content. So yeah, the first things on any device, on anything new thing, is going to be kind of goofy and garbagey, but just it's going to be like, oh, just look at this new thing. I just download the app for free and it was super fast. I wouldn't even have to think about downloading or going to some website. It was like right there on the phone. I didn't have to even think about it. So that's kind of why it facilitated a lot of that stuff. People take that for granted about app stores, just how you do things. It's like, no, you had to it was really hard. It was really hard to even just to find software. Like, which one did it work? How do you know it worked? Then there was the commercial stuff. A lot of the stuff was garbage. Or just someone hacking away and just putting up something on the market because there was literally nothing else out there. So anything sold, it was like, okay, that's low-hanging fruit.
In cash in like 2 months and then shut it down. And so if you watch, iPhone, Steve Jobs on stage, some guy in Southeast Asia building Flappy Bird, that's
Never
like wild.
Never really guessed.
And so again, to be very direct, what we're arguing is that when brand new technologies come out that are powerful, the people that are on the cusp of understanding them and that quickly build businesses or build useful things using those tools have a very unique view of.
Okay, that's when the technology changes, like the technology switch. But where the nature of this one isn't going to be so much hardware technology. It's going to be like, okay, now these tools are available and they're sophisticated enough that one person or two people could really make something with impact, and the complexity has gone way down. You know, like with KMP, you have one language. That's a big deal. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but it's a big deal because every time you switch contexts, you have to switch languages, and every language has got this quirky little thing they gotta do different. They have to do it all different. So do the exact same thing, but they gotta do it all different. So it's like, okay, but it gets annoying after a while. And Kotlin's like, okay, we're just gonna do one language. It's gonna do everything. And if you need to jump over to something else, you can. But in general, you can be right here. You're gonna do fine. You can get whatever you need done. But what I'm seeing now is the lack of imagination. People wanting to still be that billion-dollar company and accessing that low-hanging fruit in a zero-interest environment where you can get anybody with a half crackpot idea will get funding. Now that's over. So now you have to look at things that have already been established as working, right? The other people have already gone to these markets and they've established norms. And you got to find the inefficiencies where they're not addressing the market, and probably will never. There's a lot of that. So that's the opportunity now. It's like having the vision to see that this is possible, and letting go of that zero interest rate environment that we've been in the last 15 years, which I guess most developers have to come up in this. I started programming over those 1978. I was a little kid, so I've seen these things go up and down, up and down, up and down, and I've seen these hype waves come through. And I've taken breaks from the industry and come back and seen it's just all the same stuff still. It's like, okay.
Creating businesses and wealth. And again, to be on the nose for AI, it seems like you could do things that would require way more headcount than you would otherwise.
Yes.
And so, we're not even saying we know the ideas. No. We're just saying, if you're watching this and you're interested in being a founder, maybe not working at a company, and you just pay attention to every new thing that comes out and try to find these opportunities, or I don't know if arbitrage is the right word, but just new opportunities using these cutting edge tools, and you're on the bleeding edge. You're not competing with anyone.
No.
It's greenfield.
I think what's cool is anytime when these technologies.
Yeah, you can be greenfield inside of a monopoly, a micro-monopoly. That's why I call it a micro-monopoly. You can go down into one of these niches and be the first one there. And you don't have to like rush. You just have to do it correct. You have to do it the way your customers want it. And that's a process. It's always been a process. Never anyone that thinks it's not a process is silly, because if you look at the businesses from like the 90s to, that have been in business since the 90s, they've gone through changes and updates and change. Markets change and vary. So that's just part of the game of being in business. And you gotta kind of like that. And you have to like your niche as well, because you're gonna be dominating it, and you want to show how it's done, and that's your moat as well. Your moat is going to be how well you dominate your little micro niche, like your 556 customers, your 2,034 customers. How well you treat them makes it so nobody's even going to come by. It's like, well, what's the point? That company's already dominating that region. Why would I even want to get in there? It's like, they're going to get knocked out of the water. They're always going to be compared with my product when I come in there. So it's like, don't do it. It's not worth it for those 2,034 customers.
Technologies shifts happens. The cost of starting a business, some set of businesses, reduces by up to like 10x.
Yep.
And so suddenly businesses that either wouldn't have made sense, or certainly a normal person couldn't just stand up and do, right? Like, can you imagine just, it's pre-online selling on eBay. All you have to do is rent a storefront and run a store, right? Like that's cheap, right? Like absolutely not. Or like pre-Airbnb, like all you have to do is just like buy a house and set up your own bed and breakfast thing, or even buy a hotel.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Whereas like Airbnb, you can rent a room.
And think about
your own place.
If you saw Airbnb early and you just decided to be a host, and you're like, I should like do this as a business,
you can make real money. Yeah.
When Shopify was a brand new thing, like all of these platforms,
exactly.
The people that were the first to recognize.
Right, but the problem with these approaches, right, is initially, yes, people made money, but as it gets saturated, as the big players get saturated, and it gets commoditized, that's when all these people are like, I invested in 17 Airbnbs, but they all went bust because my interest rate went up too high, whatever that's. See, that's the thing we're trying to avoid, is by having a micro niche that's hopefully a couple of them that are hedges against each other, that you have a successful business that doesn't have a downturn, that you're continuously getting 12 new customers a month, that kind of thing forever, that kind of little bit of thing. Like there is stuff like that.
That these gave them leverage.
Yes.
Those entrepreneurial minded people did really well.
Yes.
Yeah, but the get in early thing, I don't think you have to be as spastic and as like autistic about, I got to do it today and I got to get in there first. It's like, you're probably going to pick a niche that's unlikely, because it's not being served right now. It's probably unlikely not to be served. And you got to make sure it's not a tar pit. Don't do this tar pit stuff, man. But like a real niche, that somebody that's been in the business, in the trenches, not look from the outside, goes, well, there's something over there. That's low hanging fruit, right? Now it's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, they got taken the low hanging fruit, but now where's the stuff that people won't even touch? Like, for example, drywall businesses. Like, you can't call a big company to come out and fix a drywall. They just won't do it. You have to call a little handyman. Does he specialize in that? We don't know. That might be a business for your area, especially in areas that have frozen pipes. Every winter there's going to be 5,000 people in town with frozen pipes that need to get their drywall fixed. And maybe the plumber comes out and does it and goes, he doesn't do the drywall. And it just stays unfixed until Mini Drywall of Austin, Texas, or Poughkeepsie, New York, drywall master comes out and he's got an 18-year-old kid. He's done a certification through your business that says he knows how to do this stuff, and he's done 20 of your samples in a row, and he can prove that he does it perfect every time. You send him out. He's now a certified local authorized reseller of that brand, and he goes out and does the thing for $250, and he just made $125 an hour. That kind of stuff is available.
So I think what's so cool is that what we're saying is, like, if you're ambitious and you're paying attention. You might not ever need to work at a big company. You might not ever need to have a boss. Like, you can be in control of your own destiny.
And I did that with like my little company.
And these moments don't happen every week. No, like, we wish we did. We but like, when they do, the people who move.
I mean, this is a very specific example.
Yeah.
But Whatnot, the online live shopping thing,
Yep.
I still talk to the founders a lot, and they have, I think, like high school aged kids selling stuff on there,
Making real money,
and making just, I don't want to say the numbers,
Yeah.
but they figured out the format, they understand how to use Whatnot, they built a user base there,
Yeah.
and they're basically
They're killing it.
they're making enough money
Right.
to set themselves up for their
Like
entire
I just
life.
said, I just put like that drywall thing I just pulled out of my hat. Like, you could actually train kids to do that kind of stuff, and you're in an area, and then franchise that thing out to all the local areas, or just dominate your area. That's fine. You know, it's a seasonal business too. You know, especially in the Northeast. You know, it's like, or down. You know, when the hurricanes come through and down in Florida, or whatever, doing all that repair, that knockdown. There's all kinds of businesses like that. It's just so many, but I don't know what they are because I'm not in those businesses.
Yeah, by just seeing this new platform, figuring it out, and then making a bet on it.
Yes.
I mean, this happened with Twitch.
Happens with Twitch. Whole new industry, basically.
Yeah.
No, I think that what's cool is that we're also talking about every scale, right? We're talking about things that can be venture-backed, maybe billion-dollar companies one day, but we're also talking about.
I'm not talking about that. That's what they're talking about, but I'm not talking about that. See, they're still hoping that stuff's available, and it's just not going to be available for a while. And so we have some other sort of breakthrough, either battery technology or computing technology, or size of these devices, or some sort of breakthrough with drone technology so they're not so loud or noisy. I don't know. There has to be some sort of hardware level breakthrough for that kind of thing to happen again. And I just don't see it. I think we've exploited a lot of the stuff and figured out what works and what doesn't work, at least for the next 10 years or so. And it's time to niche down.
Things that can just set you up so that you can pay your rent and live a good life.
Yep.
The opportunities are across the entire spectrum. And I think that's what's really cool about new technology. Like, when there's a real technology shift, it affects businesses across the board. We're not just talking about companies why it's even fun. I think that the last point I want to make on this front is that you don't get this opportunity if you're just thinking. You got to actually do.
Well, and they won't teach
I
you
agree.
this.
Okay, that I do have to agree with him there. But his thing about creating a company and doing MVP and all that stuff and all getting developers, there's ways to validate this stuff that doesn't involve just asking your parents, right, or asking your family and friends, or would you do this if I said this? Like, of course they're gonna say yes, ding dong. So there's ways of like validating that stuff. It does cost money. It's gonna cost some money, but you don't have to do software development, and so you can take your time and figure out what it is you want to build before you actually build it.
Schools teach you stuff for 10 or 20 years ago. So the other thing that I've noticed in these trends is that when you are part of the history being made and you're this early on the cutting edge of a new tech coming out, you can't expect your university or your teachers.
Right. So a lot of stuff I'm talking about, they're not going to talk about this micro entrepreneurship. I don't know what happened to America. I picked up on it. I don't know, somewhere along the way. I don't know. Maybe because I've been doing odd jobs since I was a little kid. It was just like, okay, this is how you make money. You have to do shitty stuff for people, and they pay you because they don't want to do the shitty stuff. They want you to do it. I'm like, okay, I get it. Picking peas or cleaning up trash and stuff, washing dishes. Okay, I get it. That's what we do. Right? We're doing this ugly job that people don't want to do, and we're doing it with a smile on our face, right?
Or your peers, people in your community, or your peers.
Oh yeah, okay. So they're not going to know about this micro entrepreneur, MicroMonopoly stuff. There's not part of the radar, right? It's not part. First of all, they've not done it. Second of all, they've probably not heard of anybody doing it. And if they do hear about it, it's not impressive, right? It's not super. It's like not billions. It's like hundreds of thousands or millions. You know, it's not going to be. But it's like but it's yours, and you're doing it. You're without a boss. And without having 25 bosses or office space, that stuff is real. That stuff is people don't like that stuff. So if you're unfamiliar with this lifestyle or what's involved, like that, you do have to actually do work more than probably 40 hours a week, or you're gonna have to work probably more than 40 hours a week for a while. But at the end, you have your own company, your own business, and you can keep it running or sell it or merge it or all kinds of things you can do with it. But without having that capital of your creating your own intellectual capital and brand recognition and local domination of the area of whatever business you're trying to get into, you're just going to be an employee, and it's just not going to really be a thing. Honestly, these big companies are laying everybody off, and they're kind of screwing themselves because maybe you could keep these guys on a little longer and have some goodwill, because the people that are left over after these major layoffs, they're not feeling good about life.
Teach you about it. It's only basically weirdos on the internet.
Yes.
All their best friends got laid off. All the fun people.
But the only way to find these opportunities, learn about them, is to find weirdos on the internet. They're also into this thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a weirdo on the internet. By the way, Weirdo on the internet.
And they're figuring it out too.
Yes.
And you kind of compare notes.
Yes.
And this is how new industries are created.
Literally. By weirdos on the internet.
Yeah.
Literally.
There's like some subreddit with a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah.
And like someday from now, 10 years from now, there'll be an entire industry of
Yes.
people that learned about this thing in some subreddit somewhere.
There. Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's
So, hey,
kind of
big
that's
take-
been the way. That's how. I mean, that's how I learned about special effects software, plugin, like image processing stuff was weirdos on the internet. Like that stuff was really super niche when I was getting into it in the 80s, like late 80s. I was like, who ever heard of this stuff? Using a computer to do image processing, black and white Mac. That's black and white. So we can do grayscale. I was like, what do you mean?
Takeaway is if you've been wrestling with if you thought, oh, this isn't the time to start a new business, maybe you should reconsider.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting time.
I think the final argument is there's a good case where a smaller percentage of the population will need to get jobs, and more people will be able to use tools like this to be self-employed in some way. I don't think there's
Right. So what the nature of these micro niches is, you're probably going to have to hire around people to help out with this thing. So you're going to hire somehow, some way that's actually increasing people's getting jobs. So is it really taking jobs away? I think it's going to be making a lot of jobs. These mom and shop, pop shop software companies, I think can make have a lot of people that were pushed out of this economy back into it.
I think all the structural changes imply that more folks will just use their highly leveraged selves using all these tools to run businesses than have to go get a job, right?
And I think that story isn't told, right? I think the story is always this kind of depressing story of like, oh, maybe you won't need it, you won't be needed anymore, as opposed to here's a set of tools you could do things that people couldn't think of doing affordably before. Like you could be your own boss. You don't even need to be inside of a company to create value.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
anyways, hopefully that's inspiring. Good chat. Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual for them to talk that way, because they're usually all about like finding investors and doing your pitch and making sure you get all the valuations that you need in the round A and round B. It's like, you just need to find someone. Okay, there's like 3 people that needs to be involved in these MicroMonopolies. The developer who sees these tools and gets familiar with them enough to build whatever it is we're going to build. And then you need a business person who's gonna go gonna be the he's gonna be the cheerleader for it and going out and doing sales, and maybe has some money to fund this thing as you build it, as you figure out if it's actually a thing. Wants to put some money down on it, and then and that could be 2 people, I guess. Maybe a money person, the business person goes, no, if we capitalize on this, we only need to fund it this initial cycle, see if it's even a thing. And then you meet 5 or 6 or 12 of those people, and eventually you're going to find one that's got a pretty darn good idea that you can deal with. Sometimes they're in your network, sometimes they're not. And then you're off to the races. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.